Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Everything is Fine podcast. This is episode 2. I am one of your hosts, Matt Ebersol.
I am your other host, Sean Wilson.
And we are coming to you. It is Friday, February 19th. You'll be hearing this on Sunday, February 21st. This is episode 2, coming off a very good and surprisingly successful episode 1, Sean, I must say.
Yeah, I have to admit, I greeted everyone last week on the show with, I'm glad that tens of you are listening.
Yeah.
And truly, tens of you listened. However, while tens of you listened, so many more people seem to have supported us. And I guarantee you, I know of a fact that several of our peers gathered together to watch this. So our analytics don't look accurate. But I know that we've gained an overwhelming amount of support in the past week, and it's a pleasant surprise,
Yes.
a pleasant shock.
Yeah, we want to thank all of our friends for following us, subscribing, listening, and then telling other people too, because obviously we're getting some sort of word of mouth. But on our first episode alone on YouTube, we have over 150 views, 164 views to be exact, in just 5 days, because we record these on Friday, so we uploaded them Sunday. So it's only been about 5 days. We have 164 views, which is a lot more than we thought we would be getting.
Yeah.
And on Instagram, we have over 100 followers. On Spotify, even though it's kind of hard to find us, and again, we apologize, a lot of shows have similar names to ours. And
Yeah,
also,
we realize that.
we're newer, so it takes a lot of scrolling to find us.
True. We
but-
also realized that while we were trying to figure out the user settings for Anchor, we published the first episode twice. So our analytics surely don't look accurate because it's split between the two publications of episode 1. However, you will only find one publication of this episode, no matter how hard you look for the other one. So
Yeah. And also, through Anchor, throughout the past few days, we've actually now been uploaded to other platforms besides Spotify. So if you are also on these platforms, we are on Breaker, we are on Google Podcasts, we are on Pocket Casts, and also Radio Public now. So if you have any of those services or something like that, you can also find us there. And if you'd like, we can send you the links. We can post those in our bio or something, because I have the links for all of our pages on all of those places. But yeah, we wanted to start this episode by saying thank you for supporting us. I thought the first episode went really, really well, and the views are showing that. So we want to thank you.
I also I want to show appreciation to everyone who shared our stories. We've had a couple of friends and family go out of their way and say something on Instagram or Facebook or wherever and be like, hey, look, our friends, our family are doing a little podcast show. And
Yes.
I'm grateful for the free advertising that you have given us. So if you're one of our free advertisers, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Yes.
We also thank everyone who has taken the time out of their day to comment or send us a message,
Yep.
whether it be encouraging words or nice show
Or critiquing our choices.
or critiquing our film score choices, which
Yes.
those were a joy to see the critiques.
100%.
So to everyone who took their time to send us something in some way or another, we thank you for that.
Yes, and be on the lookout for more posts similar to that. We plan to be pretty active over on Instagram. So yeah, keep following us, keep liking our posts, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We are growing on that, but we would love it if you would show even more support for us over on YouTube. But yeah, so that's how we want to start the episode. Also, last episode we had a lot of people asking what was in Sean's cup, so we decided to make
And we told the story of what is actually in the cup.
So now we decided to make it a segment. So Sean is actually drinking something right now. So Sean, what is in your cup this episode?
Kelp juice.
Kelp juice is
No,
in
it's
not. What is in that cup?
I'm actually drinking sweet tea this morning.
Sweet tea. I am indulging in some wonderful Hawaiian punch.
I say
as we
morning.
record.
It's afternoon.
He is in his pajamas right now, if you're curious. I'm currently wearing a Muppets shirt because on the day that we're recording this, the Muppet Show is now on Disney Plus, which is awesome. Because it's the Muppet Show.
So now you're providing free advertisement in the show that we've thanked for free advertisement about something we're not advertising.
Yes, we are not sponsored by the Muppet Show, but I'm excited it's there. I've always been a fan of the Muppets. I enjoy the Muppets more than I've ever enjoyed Sesame Street, personally.
Interesting.
In terms of a puppet children's show, I always enjoyed watching the Muppets. Even just the movies, like Muppets Take Manhattan or Muppets Treasure Island.
Oh yeah, well the Muppets movies are iconic.
Like Sesame Street, I liked when I was really young, but I kind of grew out of it pretty quickly.
True.
Big Bird is timeless, but I don't know. The Muppets were always my jam, I would say.
Very well.
Refreshing Hawaiian punch. So if you're wondering what today's episode is, it's not just going to be us rambling about the Muppets. It's going to be we are very passionate about Pixar films. And we wanted to cover a lot of aspects of Pixar films. So throughout the episode, you want to tell them what we're going to be talking about in particular?
Yeah, so last week we talked about what made a good film score, and we received wonderful criticism for our opinions. However, the idea kind of along the lines of this was reading those comments about our film scores, which we published, the lists in their written form. Not on sticky notes, but in the form of an Instagram post, as I have been reminded constantly of that failure. However, reading some of those comments, people, of course, wanted to put some of their opinions, these scores are great, this composer is really great, and then we came across a comment that mentioned there was a lack of Disney scores, and you know who you are. But
sorry, that was fun.
But yes, there was a lack of Disney scores because, like we said in that episode, it's a whole different animal. So we decided.
We had one.
Yeah, we did. So we decided this week to further ignore Disney scores by instead talking about Disney's Pixar.
Yes.
And not the movie scores, but we were just talking about what makes Pixar Pixar.
Yes.
It's been, I don't know, it's been a wonderful past couple of years for Pixar. The movies that have come out, the audience that is pulled in by them.
Yeah, this year in particular.
This year
last year.
Last year in particular.
Yeah,
one of the few good things about last year, Pixar.
Yeah. I will say this though, we're gonna get into this later. We're gonna talk about what's happened this past week in pop culture. But for Pixar, we are probably going to talk mostly about our favorite movies, and also I want to talk about how great they are at just making original content and how awful they are at making sequels, besides Toy Story. And then this was actually Sean's idea because he is a lot more passionate about this than I am.
Well, passionate is one way to describe it.
Well-versed.
Well-versed is another thing. I just enjoy making things needlessly complicated.
Yes,
for no good reason. So when we were talking about, let's do Pixar, because people love Pixar, and there was a bit of a call for something Disney-related from our audience.
Yeah.
So I said, have you ever heard of the Pixar Theory? And Matt said, kind of. And I said, well, let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
So
I knew the gist of it, but by reading about it over these past few days, it was written, in 2013?
15, I believe.
So it doesn't include all the recent movies, but people have tried to then subsequently put... For those of you who don't know, the Pixar Theory is a theory that every single Pixar movie takes place on the same timeline in the same universe.
Actually,
and they're not released in chronological order. I think the first movie in the theory, when it was first written, was, I think, Brave. And then subsequently they've altered it to make Good Dinosaur.
Yeah, so when it was written, it was Brave.
I don't think Good Dinosaur was out when they...
The author of the book in which the Pixar Theory was
was it a book?
It was, yeah. So the author, and if I can find the name of it,
it's John Negroni.
John Negroni, that's it. John Negroni, when he wrote his book in 2013, and it was finalized by 2015, he had said obviously I've written the book, but they're gonna make more movies. So so he's kept his running Pixar Theory with support of the fan base.
Yeah, other people have also contributed to
on a blog of his. So it's hilarious to see what lengths we as people who enjoy Pixar are willing to go to explain the odd occurrence of Easter eggs across those films.
Mm-hmm.
So because that's how my brain operates, I wanted to bring a little bit of that madness onto the show.
Yeah.
And provide you a glimpse of what it's like to live in my brain. So
now you know
what
it's like to live in my brain.
But
thank you, John Mulaney.
But yeah, but before we get to that, there was a fantastic week of trailer drops.
Yeah, speaking of Disney, they had the Cruella trailer come out.
Yes,
which it was interesting.
I will tell you this: say whatever you want about the trailer. I loved the flash paper dress so much.
Yeah,
I don't know why, but it caught my attention. I think that effect is cool.
I just feel like they're just trying way too much stuff at this point.
Perhaps.
I just think there's no need. They made Maleficent, which was a villain-based movie.
I thought Maleficent
was good, but I feel like they're just trying to capture that magic. And also, our friend Connor pointed this out. Cruella, it kind of feels like Disney is trying to make Cruella de Vil into the Joker movie that came out.
Oh, very true.
It's this dark take on how she became the way that it looks, the tone
her
of the movie,
rise to crime.
Her rise to crime. I mean, Emma Stone looks good in it, but I don't know. First of all, I've never been a huge fan of the 101 Dalmatians original movie.
Me neither.
It's never been one of my
It
favorites.
was just one of those older Disney films
Yeah.
that it was neat when we were children and it was new back then, but
I've never been a huge fan, so I'm not really like super looking forward to it, but I'll probably go see it.
it's worth it, I think, to go see it.
I mean...
I mean, we've only had like the 90-second trailer, so
Yeah, exactly.
When we get the longer trailers soon, because
Yeah.
Disney will do that.
And then on Thursday this week, yesterday for us, we had the Mortal Kombat trailer come out.
Yes, which I'm excited for that.
I'm skeptical. Because I've learned to turn my brain off from video game movie hype because they always disappoint.
Oh, absolutely.
Always disappoint.
There have been...
I'd argue the best video game movie of the past decade was Sonic the Hedgehog last year. Literally.
Yeah, honestly, that's a pretty high contender. I will say, like, video game movies are a touchy subject because how can you translate what a video game does to the big screen? In reality, you can't. You never will be able to because there's a difference between... Like, well, honestly, if you're going to make a video game movie, you just are animating the whole thing. But we're not going to do that. We want to put actors on the screen as actors. So you can only get so much. Video game movies have been notorious for their failures. Just to name a few, the Super Mario Brothers movie from the 80s, which was hilarious to watch. It's the worst thing ever.
Painful.
But it is funny.
That movie is painful to
It's
watch.
painful, but it's so bad that you have to just laugh at the
No, it's
cringe.
just terrible.
No, I agree. But
I get no enjoyment out of that movie.
It's either I'm gonna sit there and be sad the entire time, or I'm gonna laugh at how dumb everything looks.
Yeah. And then there's obviously the old Mortal Kombat.
The old Mortal Kombat movies aren't great either.
Yeah, there's Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter was like
Street Fighter was a mistake.
It's just really corny and cheesy. And then you had the Lara Croft Tomb Raider ones with Angelina Jolie, and they just started remaking them now with Alicia Vikander.
The Resident Evil movies, which are quite literally not the plot of Resident Evil.
Yeah, they turned Resident Evil into like Mad Max by the end of it.
Having played nearly every single Resident Evil game myself, I can guarantee you they are not Resident Evil movies. They just took the name of the games and took a few, like, oh hey, that's the dogs from this level, and then we had a kung fu fight with those dogs, and it was just bad.
The only video game the one video game movie that like set me over the edge of like I can't stand video game movies and they will probably all suck was when Assassin's Creed was bad.
That was
with Michael Fassbender. Like that movie should have been fantastic, and it was so boring.
It was such an easy concept too, because all you had to do is make a period piece.
Yeah,
and they didn't do that.
It's terrible.
I loved the old Assassin's Creed games. I've not played a new Assassin's Creed game.
My brother was really into
Rogue
those
and
games.
4.
I didn't really play them a lot myself, although I did play some of Brotherhood and also Black Flag a lot. Those
Brotherhood is a classic. Black Flag was fun.
My brother played those games a lot, though. Like I remember he always did the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood when they had that like multiplayer mode where like you could like walk around the city and like have to kill a certain person like you were contracted. And I would always love watching him play those games. I was never super into them, but the stories always intrigued me. So when I heard they're making a movie with Michael Fassbender, I was like, this movie could be great. And it was so terrible.
But even so, a good idea, poor execution.
Yeah.
And a plausibly passing video game movie, besides Sonic, which I think is probably... It's probably the video game movie success story.
Yeah.
I kind of want to, like... It's not a video game movie, but it was from a book heavily based in pop culture and video games.
I like
Ready Player One.
I haven't seen that movie, and I have not read the book either.
I have read the book, and it's probably one of my favorite books of all time, like as a solo book. And I knew going into the movie they were not going to be able to do everything they did in the book, and they didn't. That's fine though, because there's some crazy stuff that happens in that book. But when it comes down to it, I think it did a good job. Was it everything I wanted? Not really, but you'll take it, and you enjoyed it. You watched every second of it, and you're like, that's cool. They actually got this. I mean. Yeah, no. Did they keep the whole opening part of the egg quest that is throughout that?
Yeah.
As like in the movies, it is a death race, which just is so out of place if you read the book. But the first step to this grand Easter egg quest is this death race where players just come out with whatever vehicles they've found in the oasis and are racing to the end, and no one has ever survived to the end of the race because all their player avatars die. But when it comes to the book, the whole first step is actually clearing the Tomb of Horrors from old 1980s Dungeons and Dragons, which would have been so cool. But I digress.
But yeah, the Mortal Kombat trailer, circling back to that, I think it looks okay, but I'm skeptical. Just because it is a video game movie and it looks like a mindless action movie to me.
I hope they
We'll
do
see.
something good.
We'll see
I
what
hope
they
they do something
And
good.
then the other trailer that came out this week was the Zack Snyder Justice League, which I'm actually excited for.
I'm excited for it,
I feel
too.
like half of fans are like, screw this movie, I'm not watching it, and the other half is like, yes, give us this. We want to save
But that's the thing, though.
horrible Justice League movie that we actually got.
I'm surprised that even half the fan base is even considering, like, I don't care anymore. Because we wanted it.
Yeah, we asked for this.
We asked for it. It's the little kid being like, Mommy, I want this. And then you got the toy or candy and then you just threw it away.
I'm interested to see what he does with it, just because, well, the trailers look good. Like, what's so sad about this, though, is that the actual Justice League movie that we got was so, like, subpar, and that movie should have been so great.
Yeah.
When you think about what happened with the Avengers and how amazing that movie was because of the team-up thing, and, like, everyone loved it, but, like, when you really think about it, back in the day, no one really knew what the Avengers were, and the Justice League was the thing.
Yeah.
Now it's the complete opposite.
And when they first started making the Marvel movies, they didn't really have an idea of, like, we're actually going to tie them all together. They didn't think when they came out so many years ago with those that they
didn't
were
think
working
they'd be this huge.
Yeah,
They knew they were going to get to the Avengers, but they had no idea it would be that successful.
Yeah, and they didn't know it was going to happen after the Avengers.
Oh no.
Endgame and Infinity War were not ideas in anyone's head. No one could have saw that coming.
But the Snyder Cut, I think first of all, it's 4 hours long, so that alone right there gets me kind of intrigued and to see, because they're adding a lot of the actual Justice League movie that we got. I think was only like 2 hours, which means basically they're adding like
a whole
half,
other movie.
Half the movie is going to be a different movie.
Yeah.
And Steppenwolf looks great. Black Suit Superman. The Joker's in this.
Yeah.
He said we live in a society.
I can't believe he said the line.
I literally like dropped I was like, no.
Yeah,
like, come on.
I saw that.
You're
and
gonna say that.
when I heard Leto's voice come in with that line, I admit I stepped away and I looked in the mirror and I said, "Are you really going to do this?" And then I looked and I realized you asked for this, you wanted to see it happen, and if they're gonna play the meme, all right, fine, play the meme, have fun with it, but make the rest of the movie good. I don't want to see memes on the screen.
Yeah,
we worked too hard for this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but yeah, but those are I think the three like big things to happen this week in terms of like just
in terms of like
trailers
and news and releasements and all that.
I didn't really see that much else though. That got me like really excited. And then I watched I rewatched Spider-Man: Homecoming this week for no reason. Yeah. I just felt like watching it one night because I was just bored. And then going back to Pixar, you watched
yes,
Onward recently.
I finally sat down and watched Onward. Life has been busy, and I never found the time to do it. And then I might have found time. It would just not have been on my mind.
Yeah.
It's funny. I saw Soul before I saw Onward, which is kind of it's kind of bad. It's a bad reflection on me. Both of them are fantastic though.
Yeah.
And Onward, me being a huge D&D nerd.
Well, you're basically Barley from that movie.
Yeah, I've been told that, and that was one of the things that like convinced me to go see that movie. It convinced me, this has to be on my to-do list, and then I just got scatterbrained for so long.
Yeah.
But after watching it, I can say that like Pixar, you've done it again.
It was very, very well done.
Pixar can do two things.
I guess this is our segue into our main segment now.
Pixar can do two things very, very well, and they do everything very well. Let's be real. Try to find a flaw in Pixar's movie. You can only find them in 3 of them. But there's not Pixar's formula is golden. Pixar's ability to say what it wants through its characters, through its settings, through its storylines is flawless, and that's the point. Pixar is every second of their films was designed with an intention, a purpose. It's going to evoke something in the observer.
Pixar at its best, especially with original movies, they just do something else that really no other studio has ever matched.
Yeah.
And also the animation style is getting absolutely photorealistic.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I guess this is now our segue into our main segment. Pixar, yay. I guess
that's it.
We can talk about Onward and Soul though, but I really liked Onward. I thought it was very, very fun. I would probably give it a B plus.
Oh,
It wasn't
it
like
gets more
to
than that
me,
for me.
it was not upper tier Pixar, but it was so refreshing to see an original movie because we have barely gotten that from Pixar over the last few years. Because we got Toy Story 4 and Finding Dory and Incredibles 2 and like all these sequels, Cars 3, which I haven't seen. Yeah, that's also a point of clarity. There are only 2 Pixar movies I have not seen. I have not seen Cars 3. And I have not seen The Good Dinosaur because I've heard it's not worth my time.
See, you're not missing out on The Good Dinosaur. I can't speak because I have also never seen Cars 3. However, I just find it funny that there's a Cars 3.
The fact that the first Pixar franchise... Well, Toy Story was the first Pixar franchise to get a sequel.
Yes. It was quite literally...
It got 2 sequels.
It got
2 sequels before any other Pixar movie got 1.
Yeah.
Because
and now it's sitting with 4 in that franchise. Well, yeah,
but it's baffling to me that the first Pixar movie to get a sequel
was
besides Toy Story was Cars.
Yeah, which was an interesting choice.
They didn't make Incredibles 2. They didn't make Monsters University. They didn't make Finding Dory. They didn't make any of those movies until after they made Cars 2. Like, what was that? Why?
Yeah.
Why Cars?
Why Cars 2?
Well, why are they Cars?
Why are they Cars? That's Pixar Theory.
We'll get into this later.
But yeah, no. So when it comes down to it, Cars is just an anomaly that baffles the both of us. But like, it really does. The first Cars movie is great if you don't think about it. Because if you think about Cars, so much
that movie does not need to be told. If you really think about the story, it's about a young hotshot racer who gets humbled by going to this small town and learning about living a good life and making friends and being a good
and slowing down.
That movie does not need to be told by sentient cars.
It doesn't need to be sentient because also think of it like this. Think of
that plot does not need to be told.
If
by
it
cars.
was told from the point of view of a race car driver, that would be like super cool. But here's the thing. For a race car driver, your sport is driving a race car.
Yeah.
For a car, is it just running?
They're just running.
He just knows how to run really fast.
It's just a glorified track meet.
It's a very it's like it's taking a track meet and putting it on steroids. Yeah, that's what it is. God. Cars isn't a racing movie. It's a track and field movie. Think about that.
No, Cars is just whack.
Good idea.
Execution. Not really.
No. Good idea when it comes to like the story they wanted to tell.
When you really think about it,
but the execution was
Because I'm pretty good with like movie release dates. Sean knows this pretty well.
Oh,
so I know pretty much when movies were released. When you really think about it, just really think. Monsters Inc. came out in 2001.
Yeah.
Finding Nemo 2003. The Incredibles 2004. Pixar is at its peak. In my opinion, that is still the best 3-movie stretch Pixar's ever had. Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles. That will never be topped, in my opinion. They followed that with Cars. They followed that 3-movie stretch with Cars.
We had, and this is kind of
and then after that, it was Ratatouille, WALL-E, and Up. So it's like 3 great movies in a row, and in the middle of those 2 great 3-movie stretches is Cars.
They pulled 2 fantastic hat tricks of films.
Yes,
and just like, why? Like what was your thought process?
Cars is so bonkers.
Also,
I almost just said a bad word.
Also, what's highly interesting, if you look at the release dates, we have Cars, and then we have the second hat trick of Ratatouille, WALL-E, and Up. Then we have Toy Story 3, which was phenomenal.
Yeah, which is great.
But then we have
Cars 2.
An inverse hat trick. We have Cars 2, Brave, and Monsters University. Jeez. All back to back. And like...
Oh, God. Well, we'll get into Monsters University later and why I don't like that movie at all.
Also, it retcons the first movie.
Monsters U?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
It
100% does.
It basically says, you know that movie you loved like a decade prior?
Well, should I get into that now, or are we done talking about Onward and Soul? Because that's where we started with this.
Well, fair enough. Well, I mean, I think we're just discussing Pixar.
Yeah.
Well, before we start ragging on anything, because we've already beaten Cars to death, but we're still going to.
Yeah.
But like to make our point of why we're even getting this fervent of it, Pixar, in my opinion, can do these things very well. Firstly, we've already talked about animation and the creation of the films. That doesn't need to be said.
Yeah.
Watch a Pixar movie and you'll see what they're doing right visually. Mm-hmm. But what Pixar, I think, really can do on its own as a film theory, as a film studio, no matter what movie they show, whether it's the gritty After Earth of WALL-E or the fantastic medieval meets modern world of Onward, what that studio can do is it's not afraid to tell stories about worlds that you wouldn't stumble upon. Like, name a Pixar movie that you could feasibly just kind of think about. The only one that even comes to mind,
like realistic.
Yeah, and it's Soul. That's it. That's the only one that comes close. Like, and that Soul.
I mean, the only other one would be Inside Out, but like,
well, yeah,
I don't think you have actual emotions in your head that run like a factory or something.
If they do,
every Pixar movie has something that allows you to suspend your disbelief.
Yes.
Like something like, obviously the Toy Story world is all real except for the fact that toys are alive.
Yeah.
I'm sure the world in Up is real except for the fact that balloons can make a house fly. Like,
yeah.
there's
actually
always...
no. Up is probably the most grounded of the Pixar films in reality.
Even though,
yeah,
like, I get it because it's...
Thank you so much.
Very, very funny. No, but Soul probably is the only Pixar movie that's like very, very mature and like very grounded in reality. Obviously, there's this whole like Great Before concept that was obviously made up.
That movie was made for philosophy people.
No, yeah.
And that was such a joy to sit through and watch.
Totally.
It was made for musicians.
I enjoyed Soul.
It was made for philosophy fanatics. Like, every second of that film was so wonderful to digest.
Soul didn't make me cry, because Pixar is also very good at making you
cry. Yeah, that's the other thing. There is like a 70% chance that any individual on any Pixar film will probably get choked up at least a little bit. Like, I don't know if we'll find anyone who would do that to Cars 2, but which if I do,
every single good Pixar movie has like that one scene that just really tugs at your heartstrings. Even if it doesn't make you cry, it gets you get all like choked up.
You think about something. That's the other thing that Pixar can do. Pixar shows us these magnificent hidden worlds and the wonderful relationships that come out of them, but every single Pixar movie, I guarantee you, you're gonna walk away from it and think about something from your own life. It doesn't just show you this fantastic thing they're trying to do. It shows you something about yourself. Every single one. You think about something every time you watch those movies. And this is an animation studio owned by Disney that makes, in theory, kids' movies. We're grown men. We're grown men, and I'm not afraid to admit that there are Pixar movies that make me either come close to tearing up or have teared up, and I will admit it.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think I've like legitimately like bawled my eyes out at, I think, 5 Pixar movies. If I'm remembering correctly, I think 5 Pixar movies have legitimately made me just like sob uncontrollably. And I think those are Toy Story 3, Up, Inside Out, Coco, and I would probably say Monsters, Inc. at the end.
Yeah.
When he has to say bye to Boo. That doesn't like make me like, you know, bawl my eyes out, but I definitely tear up a lot during that movie. Soul didn't make me cry. Soul just made me be like,
Soul made
just
you...
like, wow, like that's like really powerful, but like it didn't like hit me that way.
Soul didn't have like the I'm gonna cry moment, but Soul definitely had the like you're gonna think about this and life is precious moment.
Yeah,
like that's what that movie was.
It had a great ending.
Yeah, the ambiguity. I think it's really great that we didn't know who 22 became.
Well, there's a lot of theories going around about who she did.
There's absolutely so many.
There's a good theory that 22 actually became Wall-E.
Yes, I saw that,
and I like that one.
It's fantastic, man. Also, the spoilers, I guess, if you haven't seen Soul.
Sorry if you haven't seen Soul.
We made a joke. What was the movie you said last week where it was like spoiler warning? It's Shawshank. You said spoilers for Shawshank.
Well, I don't want to... Yeah. Shawshank is one of those movies where you don't want to have it spoiled because it's so
True. But we should have actually said spoiler warnings for Soul. But
spoiler warning for Soul.
So, if you've not seen Soul, skip
Watch
ahead.
It's on Disney+.
Skip... Yeah, if you
Along
haven't...
with The Muppet Show.
If you haven't seen Soul, skip ahead to the next available timestamp because we're going to start doing those too. Mm-hmm. But so with gotta get back on track. With Soul, the whole thing about 22, and yeah, I'll take a slight divergence before I keep talking about how great Pixar is. But Soul's 22 theory of being Wall-E is impressive because of like what 22 went through with the movie, the joy of taking the time in the little things, and for anyone who's seen Wall-E. Literally look at his home. He's a hoarder. He's fascinated by every little thing he comes across. The little robot collects different sized Rubik's cubes. He has a whole sorting system for forks and spoons and gets baffled when he finds a spork. Like, the fact that he's that amazed by little things. The fact that he puts on old cassettes of musicals.
And in Soul, 22 collects all those items from Earth.
Yes.
Like the helicopter thing, that name escapes me. The thing that comes off trees. That's like the thing that she collects. The pinwheel thing, yeah.
The pinwheel.
That's like the thing that she collects, and I remember that's what like triggers Joe to like start having the epiphany when he looks at it, because I remember that's what 22 collected or something.
And the fact that 22 is this almost kleptomaniac. And that is Wall-E to a T, a kleptomaniac that is in love with everything he comes across. 22 becoming Wall-E is interesting. It also is interesting because Wall-E's a robot, and that would mean that if this is true, then robots have a soul in the Pixar universe. And I think that's adorable.
Anyone that says Wall-E does not have a soul does not have a soul.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Wall-E is probably like one of the most fully fleshed out characters Pixar's ever made.
Actually, yeah, for a droid that only says about 6 words.
Yeah.
6 coherent, fully formed words. Wall-E is probably one of my favorite Pixar characters ever.
Yeah. We're not rank. By the way, at the end of the episode, we're ranking our top 5 favorite and our bottom 3.
We are doing our top 5 favorite Pixar films. We are doing our bottom 3 because
the top 10 characters would be an interesting list. We can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that maybe later. If you guys want to hear that, we can do that on a later.
We could release that, or we could do a poll, see what people want.
Exactly.
But
top 5, bottom 3 coming at the end.
The top 3, bottom 5. I also say I'd like to do, just because I thought about it right before the show. I feel like once we do all that, on a count of like 3, 2, 1, we say at the same time our favorite short, because we cannot disregard the Pixar shorts.
That was honestly one of the weirdest things about watching Onward and Soul, because they were on Disney Plus, so they just started. Yeah, because I'm used to going to a theater, seeing a Pixar movie, and there's a short playing before.
Yeah, because
that didn't happen.
That was the joy of going to. Then rip movie theaters, but that was the joy of going to the theater back then.
My job.
Rip your job, but it was like, I'm gonna go see Incredibles 2. What's the movie?
Bao.
And then it was Bao.
That was great.
The
one with the dumpling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shorts were such a neat little, like, treat that you got. It was
like a nice little, it's like the appetizer before the big meal.
But that's the thing, you didn't even know the appetizer. You're like, I'm gonna go see Incredibles 2, and then we got Bao, and like, oh, that's neat.
And Bao was better than the actual movie that followed.
That's not true. That is not true.
We can talk about that later. I'm not a huge fan of Incredibles 2.
I liked Incredibles 2. Did I like it as much as 1? No, but I still liked it. But that's
14 years too late.
14 years too late, but it still happened, and I'm grateful.
Yeah,
it should have came out when Cars did.
God. Back to Cars again.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I didn't really enjoy Soul, though. I thought that Soul was a great movie.
Soul was a joy, and especially like
it's the most mature Pixar movie.
It's definitely the most mature Pixar movie. And
I could see kids not liking it.
Absolutely.
Because it's almost too like philosophical.
It was too real.
It makes it was way too real.
It was too real.
It was really, really... I will say, though, again, spoiler warning, once they become, like, body swapped and Joe becomes the cat and 22 is in Joe, I lost some interest in it because I'm like, really? We're doing, like, a body swap comedy
But
now?
I think that was necessary.
It worked for the end goal, but, like, for, like, 15, 20 minutes, it was just, like, them, like, oh, now there's different bodies and wacky hijinks ensues.
It's not a Pixar movie if you don't have the quirky animal.
Yeah.
So they filled the quirky animal requirement with Joe the cat.
I don't know. I wasn't... Considering how great the movie was and how creative it was when they were in the Great Before and, like, Joe was teaching 22 and, like, going to that like, the place where, like, all the people were in the zone and, like, all the... Like, trying to find her spark and everything. And then that happened and they got switched of bodies. I found it... I don't know. I found it less interesting and it kind of halted the momentum of the movie for me. But then by the end, you understand why they did that. It's just in the moment, I was kind of like, I probably need to rewatch it just to maybe fully appreciate it. But that was my opinion when I first watched the movie. Wasn't the biggest fan of that part.
Yeah, but
that's just me.
Even so,
I did enjoy the movie though.
It was a fantastic thing to watch. Plus, also as a musician, like that was super neat to see. Like I loved the concept of being in the zone because that's what it is. Like, I mean, it's not exactly that. It's not like you're going to be on a pirate ship in the astral sea. But that feeling, I'm so glad that they touched on that. And what I also really liked was because, like, when you saw, like, in the, like, montage of, like, when they were going into it, like, seeing all the different people in the zone floating around, it wasn't just musicians.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Because I think you saw an athlete or two, you saw a dancer, you saw a painter, an artist, you saw different people, and like it wasn't like, oh, musicians come here to get in the zone. It's not like musicians have this access to this heightened state of reality.
Different passions can reach.
It was passion that got them there.
Yeah.
That was amazing to see, and I think it was even better that it wasn't just musicians, because there's a joy that comes from performing on a stage or performing as a musician in any concept. Once you get past stage fright, of course. Yeah. But when it's so neat to like say like, oh, they called that out. It's not just the artist or the musician that gets that. There were athletes up there. There were other people up there. That was just a neat little nod.
All right. Before we move on to the Pixar Theory thing, because I want to make sure we get to that and not make the episode run super long.
Absolutely.
So before we get to that, I just had an idea. Before we do that, let's give a quick blurb on our most surprising and most disappointing Pixar movies that we've ever seen.
Movies, you mean?
Yeah. Like, in terms of, like, what movie did you go into, like, and you liked it a lot more than you thought you would? It surprised you? And then what movie was the most disappointing for you?
I need to
I have my answers if you want me to go first.
You go first,
So,
I need to think.
My most surprising actually is kind of unconventional, I think, because it happened when I rewatched the movie. Because when this first came out in 2007, when I first saw Ratatouille, I liked it. Didn't love it. I thought it was cute. But I didn't think it was great. I rewatched it a couple years ago, and everything clicked about it for me. Because I saw it when I was 7 years old. And that movie, I think, really did surprise me. I wasn't expecting that movie to be as good as it was upon rewatch, and it is now one of my favorites. Maybe it'll appear on my top 5 list. Who knows? But Ratatouille was probably my most surprising. Most disappointing, that's an easy one for me. Monsters University.
Yeah.
100%. Because Monsters, Inc., I love Monsters, Inc. so much, and so when I went into Monsters University, I was expecting it to be just as good, and it wasn't, and it was just like this weird like college comedy that, like, as you said, retconned the first one in many ways, and just didn't need to exist.
Yeah.
There
is quite literally a line in Monsters, Inc. that's like, it references like they've known each other since elementary school.
Oh yeah, you've been doing that since the 3rd grade. Pal,
like you've been doing that since the 3rd grade.
And yet they met in college.
Yeah, and the first time they meet is in college, and then you find out that they get the job as janitors. Mm-hmm. So, wait a second, he's been the top scarer for the entirety of the time he's been at the company. Yeah. That's what they said. No, he cleaned up the bathrooms for like 10 years. Which also makes them way older than we thought they were.
Yeah.
Like,
alrighty, you're most surprising, most disappointing. If you had to think.
My most disappointing
and maybe. Also, another surprising one for me would be Toy Story 4. That's another one because I did not expect the movie to be good at all. I
went into Toy Story 4 with an even keel. It was good in some aspects. It was bad in some aspects. But yeah, I think I'll start with disappointing because this is one of the few Pixar movies that I just genuinely like. I don't like thinking about it. It's Finding Dory.
Finding Money?
Finding Money. I love Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is such a good story. It's a dad who realized that like he was helicopter parenting way too hard, and he just
learned to let go.
He learned to let go and to let his son go out and explore the ocean. And it was this rekindling of like, I need to find my son, and who I love him no matter what. And even if he's brave enough to go into this world. Nemo comes into his own. The Tank Gang is fantastic. Dory is a wonderful character. And then she wasn't. Dory is a good character. I like Dory. I like Dory a lot. Here's the problem. We didn't need Finding Dory.
No, we didn't.
We didn't need anything like that. I think it was fine to have the amnesiac fish without a backstory, you know? Or the backstory, the story that mattered for Dory was Finding Nemo with Marlin.
Yep.
We didn't need a Find My Family movie right after another Find My Family movie.
Yeah.
Also, I hate the seals.
Right.
That's a personal bias.
So your most surprising.
My most surprising? I just genuinely have a good... whenever I go into a Pixar movie, I just feel pretty good about it until I don't. Which is Cars 2.
Sorry to spring this upon you. I thought of the question.
That's honestly hard. I mean, because like
yeah, it's hard for me. I kind of.
It's hard because like
retweaked it.
I'm either thinking it's going to be great and it is great, or I think it's going to be great and then we get
not.
Finding Money. Geez, I have to say that probably maybe this is a bit of a kid one, but one that surprised me so much that it stayed with me is probably WALL-E, because I remember when I think it came out. What year did WALL-E come out?
2008.
2008. I was 8 years old, so. Me thinking, how can they do a movie where I still went to go see it in theaters when I was a kid, but it was impressive to me how they could do an entire movie with a character that barely could speak. And then I learned that WALL-E didn't need to speak.
Nope.
WALL-E said 6 words, 6 full-length words during that film, and I fell in love with him, and I still love him to this day.
Yep.
And that was probably the most.
Is he your favorite Pixar character?
He probably is. If not, he's tied for first place. I couldn't even think of who else to tie him with.
Mine's Mike Wazowski, but everyone knows that.
Fair.
So.
I don't know. If WALL-E probably is the favorite character. Okay. I just love what they did with him.
Maybe we also answered that question now. Well, alrighty. So
the Pixar.
We wanted to get to this because it's something obscure that maybe some of our listeners don't know about. I certainly am not super well versed in it. Sean is. So Sean. I want you to take it away here. I will obviously chime in because I do know some stuff about this theory, but as we sit here at the 41-minute mark, I guess we can start talking about this theory, which is not written by us. We give full credit to John Negroni. Yeah. We are literally just spreading the word. We're like messengers.
So what the Pixar theory is, for anyone who's ever seen a Pixar film, you notice that you see the pizza truck from Toy Story all over the place. You notice that you see little reliefs of different characters from different movies.
The Luxo Ball.
The Luxo Ball. You see a wood carving of Sully in Brave. Mm-hmm. There are things like that strewn throughout the universe. You also hear the numbers A113, but that is just a studio reference. But,
that was the dorm room that the creators of Pixar lived in when they were at animation school.
Yeah.
That was their room number, A113. And that's in every single movie.
It pays homage to their roots. It was also funny because I forgot to look for the A113 mark in Onward, and they got it in right at the end on the police scanner. I was like, that's interesting. That's the first time it's not been written down. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, they said we've been A113.
Yeah, that was really close. Not close. I can't speak. That was really clever, the way they did that so close to the end of the movie. But how the Pixar theory goes, and I'm literally just going to read the canon list. Well, not canon, but the assumed timeline accurate list off of my notes here. And then we'll kind of go into why the theory says this is the semi-correct order. But from dawn of creation to the furthest forward movie assumed in the timeline, and updated for having up to Soul on it, it is The Good Dinosaur, Brave, The Incredibles 2, Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, Ratatouille, Toy Story 3, Toy Story 4, Up, Inside Out, Coco, Soul, Cars, Cars 2, Cars 3, WALL-E, A Bug's Life, Onward, Monsters U, and Monsters Inc.
Yeah, Monsters Inc. is the furthest.
Yes, and what's also, what I do remember first reading this, you might be wondering, why is A Bug's Life after WALL-E?
We'll get to it.
We'll get to that later. So kind of taking it a bit in order and just explaining bits and pieces why. Good Dinosaur is obvious. If I have to explain that, there's a problem.
Yeah, that's definitely the first one.
That's definitely the first one. And I know what you're thinking, like, oh, like, for those of you who've seen Onward or like, Onward, like, oh, it's a fantasy land. Wouldn't that be before it? Well, we'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
We will. But Good Dinosaur is undeniably the earliest one, because we don't see humanoids until after that time period.
Well, no, because there's a little boy in it, right?
Yeah, the first man.
Yeah.
The first family of humans is in that movie. And it's the
I
dinosaur
haven't even seen that movie. So.
Yeah. Also, just an odd choice making the dinosaurs the human-like ones and making the humans dogs.
Ones, yeah.
But yeah, that's that.
So that happened. What's after that?
Brave. Brave is the only medieval setting for a Pixar film.
Gotcha.
And that's very just traditional history with a little bit of, like, you know, the elements of that magic that runs through the life of Pixar. The Will-o'-the-Wisps, the Ancient Curses of Scotland, a protagonist that creates every single problem in the movie.
That's we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. But yeah, Brave is just the natural progression. It's the first time we see magic in the universe. It is the first time we see, there's foresight involved and power beyond our comprehension.
Yeah, and then the magic in Brave then leads to supers, which is why Incredibles is
Yes, so the running theory is that with magic being discovered in medieval times, those who sought to master it had it imbued within them, and it got passed down through bloodlines. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, the thought process is it became a dormant form of magic, and more so mutants, and that is where we got supers. In the 1960s? Is that when The Incredibles canonically took place?
I'm looking at the current time. It says in between the 50s and the 60s.
50s and 60s.
Now, granted, this website I'm on is published when the actual theory was published, and when the theory was published, the most recent movie at that time was Monsters University.
Yes. So we are covering for the last few.
So I do not have Inside Out or Good Dinosaur on here.
I have the notes.
This is like the official website of the Pixar.
Whereas I have the notes for the films that were added later.
Yeah. But The Incredibles, it says that that's also the birth of AI, because obviously the Omnidroid shows up.
Yes.
And
Syndrome is credited with being the birth of the creator of AI in the universe.
And it's the pivotal moment where machines start to view humans as a threat, and a rivalry begins between humans being afraid of AI and AI wanting to destroy humans.
And it's further kind of laid out with Incredibles 2 with the Screenslaver.
Yes.
Using technology and imbuing bits of mind control technology onto humans. That combined with the eventual idea of something similar to the Sokovia Accords, most likely due to supers being returned.
Yeah.
That AI it's just a natural progression. You could honestly just create a Pixar version of Age of Ultron and it would make sense.
Give me a Civil War.
Well, true. Well, yeah, both.
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong.
You could do both Civil War and Age of Ultron. Just make them Incredibles 3 and 4, and you've got it. This is how we get AI.
Yeah, and then after Incredibles, because AI starts to progress, it says the first sign of life from toys are now present due to Syndrome's technological prowess, and toys come up with their own code of rules, and they start to gain sentience.
Yes.
Thus leading into Toy Story 1 and 2.
Yes. So originally, I do remember the idea kicked around by the original writer of what if toys were the link to magic? It was magic animating the toys. But then kind of putting it together, if you look at the appropriate time frame of when those movies take place just based off of the technology used in Toy Story, it would make sense that it definitely is after the 1960s.
It says here it's in between 1997 and 1999.
Exactly.
Those two movies take place over
that. So there's probably a healthy amount of technology in all of our toys at that point. I mean, just look at real life. I can't name a children's toy that doesn't have a microchip in it nowadays. So perhaps Woody isn't just a pull rag.
Yeah.
So. And
then you also see how it grows more into the resentment towards humans by the toys and everything, because you have the kids, the toys rebelling against Sid in the first movie.
Yeah.
And then the second one, Jessie resents her former owner because they're abandoned by humans.
And then the whole Lotso storyline.
Yeah, that's
that's later, but that's an eventual recurrence.
But no, because that was technically around the same time period, because that's a flashback.
True, yeah. Lotso introduced
so basically,
in
the
movie,
Toy Story movies are supposed to show that AI is advancing and that AI is starting to resent humans now. Not just attack them, but actually start to physically hate them because of how they're treated by them.
And Woody's one of the last good aligned toys.
Mm-hmm. So what's after those movies?
So there's actually a brief interlude between the conclusion of the Toy Story saga. So 3 movies take their place in between that. It is Finding Nemo, Finding Money, and Ratatouille.
Finding Money.
I refuse to call it by its real name. Finding Nemo, that's just showing that's
the first introduction to animals.
That's the first introduction of sentient animals. Granted, there's probably sentient.
Well, no, because Good Dinosaur.
Well, yeah, good.
But that's forever.
That's forever ago. We've not seen sentient animals since then, and the only time we've seen a sentient animal, if you're looking at this as a canon timeline, was Brave, but that was 2 humans turned into bears. Okay. So, 5 if you count the triplets. Mm-hmm. But
I guess Finding Nemo and Ratatouille both have to do with advancing the relationship between animals and humans.
Yes.
Because in Finding Nemo, they try to steal back Nemo from humans because they take him.
Yeah.
The entire ocean feels like they're on
a
Marlin's
mission.
side.
Yeah.
because of the way that humans have kidnapped Nemo and everything.
And they rally behind a dad looking for his son.
Mm-hmm.
And that also is loosely like, oh, this is natural magic again. Because magic has only been shown to affect living things. So.
And then in Ratatouille, you have the people hating the rat for wanting to cook.
Yeah, and the rat proves his worth.
Basically, humans suck.
Yeah, the theme of the early timeline is humans suck. And everything hates terribly. Them. But then we do conclude the Toy Story storyline with 3 and 4 happening basically within 2 years of each other.
Like here it says 2010, 2011 area on the timeline of when Toy Story 3 and 4 happened.
And then Toy Story 4 is like a year after that. So that, again, just further recurses, like, that's the end of the Toy Story saga, but it also hammers home the divergence in toy identity. Because in 3, we had Lotso, who wanted to essentially annihilate any hope in humans. And we have 4, we have the lost toy mentality of, we don't need humans, we can look after ourselves. And we can help other toys maybe find joy if they still believe in that. But after Toy Story 4, it's Up.
Yeah.
Up, and like we said, Up is the least fantastical. Up is truly just a love story. It's a old man paying homage to his wife by living out their dream, and that's, interestingly enough, it reflects on sentient animals. And
because the dogs talk now.
Because of the dogs talk. Granted, the dogs are talking with humans for the first time due to AI advancement with technology. Yeah. But it also just means that Kevin's really dumb.
And Charles Muntz, he trains all the dogs and animals and humans again. Like, he's keeping all these dogs pretty much as his prisoners.
Yeah.
And then you also saw, and then it says here, this is the first instance of, by and large.
Yes, it's the first time we see the B&L logo.
Because they are trying to get rid of Carl's house in the movie.
Yes.
And it's the same corporation, B&L, that is pretty much the entire plot of WALL-E. Because that's the company that polluted
You also,
the earth and
in Toy Story... Actually, no, the first time you see it, I lied. It's on Buzz's batteries.
Oh, Buzz's batteries.
In Toy Story 3, when he's reset to Spanish Buzz, they're B&L batteries.
Yep.
So, think of it like this. We have a battery company that's now doing real estate.
Yeah.
That's a bit interesting.
They're starting to take over the planet because they're just expanding everywhere.
A corporate.
So then what's after Up? Because I think this is where your timeline.
So yes, there are some additions. So after Up, it's kind of staying in what's called the modern era. The next 3 after Up are Inside Out, Coco, and Soul, respectively.
Inside Out, Coco, Soul.
The argument is that they are all actually happening within the same year or 2.
That would make sense.
So like, think of it like Soul and Inside Out taking place in back-to-back springs, and Coco would be a fall, because like that's when Dia de los Muertos is.
Yeah.
So the running theory is Inside Out is early spring one year. It's Dia de los Muertos for Coco, and then it's shifting into fall again by the time Soul. Or at least the summer. It's at least summer.
And I guess all 3 of those movies, I guess, really explore humans and like the human mind.
Yes.
I guess because Inside Out is literally the human mind.
We've had this whole antagonistic force almost in humans. If you look at it with magic animals and AI advancing, this is the last good period, and Up, the last truly good period where you see humans be exemplary and almost have magic come back into their lives once more. We have, of course, we talked about Soul extensively, the spirituality of humans, the powers of being in the zone. That's more magic than mutant with what we saw in The Incredibles. Inside Out, that's no magic whatsoever. That's just the exploration of the human psyche. That's a purely human, no magic, like, piece. That's like, hey, do you remember the group that we've kind of subtly said we should hate? They're still humans. They still have feelings. That's to remind us that there's no conflict. There's just growing tension.
So now we have to jump.
And then Coco is just a wonderful movie about accepting death, and it's beautiful.
And then we jump to Cars.
So here's the problem.
This is where you have to fill in a lot of gaps. Because this is the part that I read on extensively.
How do we get from Coco to Cars?
And keep in mind, on this timeline I have here, I would assume Coco, because it says Up takes place around the years 2011, 2016 area.
Yes.
So I would assume that the Soul, Inside Out, Coco group would probably
They take place between 2018 and 2019.
Yeah, about that. And then here it says that Cars is around the year 2200. So about 200 years ago.
So what the hell happened in that 200 years? I'll tell you. The timeline goes Cars 2, Cars 3, Wall-E.
Understandably. Yeah.
Wall-E is the reason why these three movies happen. So yes, I'm jumping forward to explain what happens next. But think about this. By and large has taken over the Earth. It has run it into the ground as a corporate monopoly that is everywhere. You look at Wall-E and every 90 feet you see the BNL sticker. It's on the Axiom. It's in every food thing. Mm-hmm. Humans had to leave Earth, which is way too topical, because it was unhospitable. So we are like, by and large, has ruined everything for this point. And now we have nothing left. Well, what did we leave behind? We left AI behind. We left robots behind. Mm-hmm. Those robots...
It even says that like
became cars.
So like the machines, apparently like with animals and humans, like you've been seeing the growing tension. Apparently they like went to war or something, and the machines helped the humans win. However, since machines helped the humans win, it tipped the balance on Earth, and machines and BNL had to send the remaining humans off to space in a ship called the Axiom, and all the other machines were left behind to populate the world. How do we know it's still Earth though? Because in Cars 2. They race in Italy and France and Japan and all these actual Earth countries.
Now, granted, this is the biggest leap in the theory because this says there's a whole off-screen war. So that's terrifying, and I would love to see that movie. But
well, that would just confirm this theory.
Oh yeah,
and
I would love to see that. But at the same time, we're never going to get a Pixar Genesis movie. Yeah. But yeah, you have to really just play with the imagination that there's an off-screen machine-animal war, and then AI wins.
Cars 3 happens, and then Wall-E happens.
And Wall-E happens, which Wall-E is self-explanatory. It's the return to Earth, which is
and
why...
Earth is now a wasteland. The cars, they can't survive on their own, so now the cars are gone.
Yeah, they ran out of fossil fuel.
Yeah, they're gone, and now Earth is a shell of itself. And that's why Wall-E's there by himself. And
Wall-E
the reason
returns.
why he's able to stay is because he has like human-like qualities.
Yes, but also the main reason for the Axiom returning to Earth, we have plant life that returns.
Yep. And Wall-E plants that tree.
And Wall-E's sapling grows and a community forms around it. The city is already in ruins. They clear it away and it becomes lush countryside again.
This was what blew my mind with the theory, though, this next part that you're going to get to, because I'll let you explain.
The theory states that the next movie in the timeline is A Bug's Life. And that's what you're thinking is like, why have we come so far? Shouldn't this be back in the sentient animals phase with Nemo? Wrong. The theory is that Wall-E's sapling is the tree from Bug's Life.
Which is brilliant.
And that is just to show the return to Earth. It's the human-like qualities being in animals that were allowed to be reborn again, almost like with life finding a way.
And also, like, humans are very scarce at this
current moment. There's no human. You don't see humans.
And there's a line in Bug's Life where another ant tells Flick not to leave the island because, quote, there are snakes, birds, and bigger bugs out there. They never once mention humans because there's so little of them that they're not even viewed as a threat. Yeah. Because pretty much all the humans on Earth are just all the ones that were on the Axiom.
Yeah, and it's only been maybe a couple years. There's not like another generation of new human life on the planet. Bugs, which were just recently allowed to kind of repopulate whatever has survived, because it's also kind of stating that Wall-E's roach pet is an ancestor to these bugs. But with more cockroaches around, with that breeding, with other insects maybe finding survivors and breeding, this is how Wall-E's sapling tree community forms.
Also keep in mind, Wall-E, it's said, takes place during the years 2800, 2900-ish.
So this is a long time after the Axiom.
And then Bug's Life is about 100 years after Wall-E. Yeah. And then there's the biggest jump in the timeline is the one going from Bug's Life to Monsters, Inc., I believe, right?
Yes. So, but I do have some more things on here.
There's Onward's there, too. Oh, crap.
Yes, so after Bug's Life, we have Onward. Here's the thing. Onward's a year old, and Onward's the one that's baffled the most. So it almost states that, and I've heard two different viewpoints, and I'm just kind of going to smash them together for simplicity's sake. One viewpoint is it's another planet. Well, that could work, but a lot of the technology is reminiscent of what we see on Earth. It's almost too reminiscent. Mm-hmm. So we're going to excuse the secondary planet thing. Yes, there are 2 moons, which is the big staple of why this doesn't slightly work. But also think, it's been several thousands of years at this point. For the world of Onward, it's 1313. So that could be 1313 years after the Axiom.
No, 1313 is the Monsters University year.
Oh no, sorry, that's Monsters University. My mistake.
We'll get into that.
We'll get into that later. But regardless, though, this theory states that several thousands of years later, and then another 1,000 years of exposition that happens in the opening act of Onward. So it's the running theory is that humans or humanoid life has evolved into these fantastical creatures to survive. Their way of life allowed them to reconnect. Their forms were better suited to harness magic, which has been on Earth this entire time, laid dormant. But now with the biology to channel and harness magic, the rise of the fantastical age has begun. The wizard's revolution, the spread of magic to make things better. And then someone had to go find an old city where B&L's products still were and technology was, and lo and behold, we had Modern Age 2, Electric Boogaloo. Yeah. So with now this D&D 5th edition inspired modern world, these fantasy creatures who still are some of them possess magical talent, as we see in the movie, because Ian can use a magic staff, but not everyone can use a magic staff because Barley can't cast spells to save his life.
Nope.
So magic is dying. It's not there as much. Some people can use it in its pure form, but not everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So after the end of Onward, because Ian starts that like after school like magic theory class, but not everyone can use his staff. So with the progress of modern times, because it's not like Ian by himself was going to bring back the fantasy age. Ian eventually gets a few people to learn magic, but it doesn't hold. Society keeps progressing to a picture of modern times, but over the several hundreds of years in that, these humanoid creatures evolve out of the fantasy races of mermaid, elf, and all that, more into bestial to better survive their environment, which is Monsters, Inc. And further proof for this is look at how bestial the Manticore is.
Mm-hmm.
That creature is very reminiscent of some of the monsters you see in Monsters, Inc. It's got and the powers that not just the Manticore it displays, but some of the others in the universe as well Onward. Those translate into genetic abilities in some monsters, like how Randall can turn invisible like a chameleon.
Yep.
The Manticore had a stinger with poison in it.
Yep.
You have different monsters with like glowing eyes that can like freak people out or like do a little bit of mind control that you see.
You can see now that Sean knows a lot more about this than I do.
Yeah, I overcomplicate things and I find enjoyment in that.
But the Monsters University part is like my favorite one because, as you said, it says Monsters University was founded in 1313.
Yes.
Meaning that they pretty much reset their calendar.
Yes.
So that means that basically Monsters University and Monsters Inc. take place 1500 at like 1300, 1500 years, like since the beginning of when they started their calendar. So that's like 2,000 years from when Bug's Life happened.
Yes.
And probably also pretty far from when Onward happened, which is nuts. Now, my favorite part about the theory, besides the tree thing, is the Monsters Inc. time travel.
Yes. So this is how this
loop part is absolutely insane.
So you might have noticed.
We hope you keep listening to this.
You might have noticed that earlier in the show we talked about how you see Easter eggs in different Pixar films. A lot of the times it's the B&L logo, the rocket ship from the Pizza Express or Pizza Planet truck. But the one thing that's interesting is they're all future tense. Well, at least in part, they're reminiscence of earlier time periods. They're past tense, not future tense. There's one future tense oddity, and it's in Brave. There is a wood carving of Sully on the table in the witch's hut.
Yep.
That is supposed to be several eons ago.
Mm-hmm.
How does the witch have this carving?
Well, basically, so basically, they discovered the magic through time traveling through doors in the monster world because magic, again, as Sylvia by Onward, is still there.
Yes. But it's in different shapes.
They were able to harness it to time travel back to a time where humans were extremely populous, and they could then get the screams from them. So basically, the theory is that
the doors are windows to the past.
The doors are going back in time to when like Toy Story happened.
Yes.
Because that's when humans are really popular, and that's why Boo is in Toy Story 3.
And it's why Boo's toys are a clownfish and the rubber ball with the star.
And the Jessie doll.
And the Jessie doll.
Like, because he is going, like, thousands of years back in time to when Boo was a kid in, like, the year 1999 or whatever, even though the monsters are, like, thousands of years after that. They're time traveling through these doors. They're not going to another dimension that's in their current time period. They're literally going thousands of years in the past.
Yes,
to a
and
time
they
where
don't,
humans
and
were
they fully
populous.
don't understand that because they say it's the monster world, when in reality, there's the only way this is plausible with this theory is it's accidental time travel, and they're not aware of that.
Now
I guarantee you that none of those monsters are physicists.
Now,
so...
we'll wrap it up with the Boo thing, because this is where it kind of wraps
Yes.
up. So, you mentioned how there's a carving of Sully
in the witch's hut.
witch's hut in Brave. What is the one thing that the witch uses the most to harness her power in Brave with? Wood. What are the doors in Monsters, Inc. made out of? Wood.
And
Wood
what
is
is-
a power source.
And the huge MacGuffin, that is this meaningful thing for Sully is the splinter from Boo's door.
The wood is a power source for traveling back in time.
And
magic.
in theory, magic, which is also proved by Onward being wizard staves are made of trees.
Now imagine you're Boo, and you go into this world, and she's old enough at the age where she is, where she'll at least remember parts of it, but not everything. So it's gonna she's gonna be obsessed with it. She's gonna be obsessed with finding Sully again.
Yeah.
And so she wants to try to figure out. So later on in her life, she was able to discover that wood was a power source, and so she begins time traveling. And
This is another one of those big leaps.
but it's so cool.
Like
because she has the evidence in Brave and everything, and she uses this wood to travel through time, and she's trying to find Sully, and she travels back to a time where magic was first formed. Brave.
Yes. And this loops the theory.
Boo.
Is the witch.
Boo is the witch from Brave.
And she starts putting magic on the proper course so that future her can come back in this time period. She doesn't know about the massive gap in time, obviously. All she has is, I was a kid in 1999 who has vague memories of a monster friend. I went jumping through a bunch of doors with this piece of wood fitted into it somehow. And I ended up walking out of a wooden door in a shack in the woods, surrounded by magical, little wispy things. I learned magic from them. And now I realize, oh, I'm super good at this. I need to ensure that other people get super good at this so the monsters can use it, and or maybe I create the monsters, because what does her magic do? It morphs people into bestial forms.
And she's obsessed with bears, and I don't think I'd be stretching this truth when I say that Sully resembles a bear.
Yeah, Sully and if you look at Sully's silhouette and the silhouette of Mordu, there's a same intimidating large presence there. It's not exact,
and then
but
of course there's a theory that Boo is struggling to find Sully and struggling to do this. So she is having trouble trying to figure out a good time period. So she's the one that accidentally plants all these Easter eggs.
Yes.
In all these movies.
So all the times you see B&L and all the times you see
the time you see Flick and Heimlich in Toy Story.
Yes.
When Buzz is through the branches.
They're accidents where maybe they flew through a door that Boo was going through and they ended up in this place.
So
it's Boo's use of monster technology with trace amounts of magic that creates an endless loop and the progression of the Pixar universe.
So long story short, Boo is the witch from Brave.
Yeah.
Boo is the most important Pixar character. Yeah, I guess that's it. So that's the Pixar theory. I've always loved this theory. When the first time I read it a couple weeks ago when we decided we were going to do this, I read through it and I was just baffled by it.
Yeah, and I found this several years ago and was fascinating because
it's so
cool.
cool.
Like I said, I love complicated puzzles like this, and
It does
storytelling
stretch
is
the truth
cool.
sometimes.
Oh, it absolutely does, and it's not perfect. And I either want to see it be right somehow, or I want to see it dashed to pieces.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It could be true. It could be not. It could be talking out of our butts. But it's still such a joy to think about it, and it's a kind of cool thought. What if Wally's sapling was the tree that eventually became Ian's staff that eventually was made into a door?
Yep.
How funny would that be that one little sapling that the robot almost died for did all this?
Yep. All right, so as we approach the hour and 8-minute mark, I think we're already past it. We should probably get to our list. That way we can keep this episode relatively shorter.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we hope you enjoyed our dissection of the Pixar theory. Now we're going to get into Sean and I's top 5 Pixar movies, and then our bottom 3 Pixar movies. We didn't want to do bottom 5 because, honestly, there's not really that many that are bad. Some of them are disappointing. Some of them don't live up to that. But, there's only a few that are terrible. Now, again, keep in mind, I have not seen Cars 3 and Good Dinosaur, so those will not be on either of my lists because I have not seen them. And you haven't seen Cars 3.
Cars 3 is the only one I've never saw, and
Okay.
I just have no desire.
So if you're expecting me to hate on either of those movies or you're expecting Sean to hate on Cars 3, we will not be because we have not seen them.
True. But for brevity's sake...
Yeah. So how are we going to do this? In terms of order?
I think... Didn't you go first last week?
You went first last week.
So...
Because I finished off with Empire at the end.
True. So you go first this week.
Are we doing, what, 5 through 2?
Do 5 through 3, and we'll keep it short.
Okay. So 5 through 3. So number 5, and this, I know you're not going to like this one, because I know for a fact you don't like this movie. I know for a fact you don't like this movie. But number 5 is Inside Out.
It's not that I don't like Inside Out, I just don't prefer it.
5 is Inside Out for me. Inside Out is Pixar's best original movie in a very long time, in my opinion. Because most of the decade, they mostly made sequels. And Inside Out's just so creative. And the character of Joy and her journey throughout the movie and how she finds out that sadness is important. And you have to have sadness to then have joy. It's such a powerful message. The Bing Bong scene makes me cry every time, and even more so than that, the scene at the end where she comes home and she breaks down to her parents, and like you see joy and sadness working together. It's just it's Pixar at its creative best, and it's the most recent movie on my list because that is just like I adore that movie. It makes me cry every time I watch it, and also Amy Poehler. If we were ranking voice performances in Pixar, Amy Poehler as Joy, possibly my favorite one.
Not my favorite Pixar movie, but one of the best vocal performances.
Yeah. And Bing Bong, love you, man. Love you, Bing Bong. All right. 4, this might surprise people because there's 4 of these movies, and people have their own preference as to which is their favorite, because they're all great in my opinion. But I chose Toy Story 2. Because Toy Story 2 has always been my favorite Toy Story movie. I absolutely love the addition of Jesse Bullseye, the prospector, in this movie. I love the character of Al. He is so zany and so kooky. I love him. I love the entire like rescue mission vibe that Buzz and Ham and Rex and all they go on. And the comedy in this movie is top notch. It is probably the funniest Toy Story movie in my opinion. I really think it is.
It definitely was the one played for comedy.
Great lines, and I love the ending. Now the ending, obviously, at the whole airport scene, like maybe stretches the truth a bit, but they're living toys. I don't care. Like they're living toys. There's already stretching the truth with being this world that exists. Toy Story 2 is my favorite Toy Story movie. I also love the song, the When She Loved Me, the Jessie scene.
Also, one of the most weirdly composed songs ever.
It's a great song though.
It's almost a through composed song. Almost. But I adore that movie. That's my favorite Toy Story movie. So there will be no more Toy Story movies on this list. But I will say, all of them are phenomenal. But 2 is my favorite. 3, and then we'll pass this on to you, because we'll do 5 through 3, then we'll do 2, and then we'll do 1. So my number 3 is Finding Nemo. Nemo, I think that was the first Pixar movie I saw in the theater. I think I was 4 or 3 when that came out, depending on when I saw it. It's just so freaking good, man. Like, Marlin is one of the best characters in terms of just, like, relatability. And I can't wait to watch this movie if I ever eventually become a parent. I feel like it's going to hit me on a whole other level. Because watching it as a kid, you relate to Nemo. Watching it as an adult, you relate to Marlin. It has multiple levels. And then you have Dory kind of being a very, very funny comic relief character throughout the whole thing. The Tank Gang. Just all the different places Marlin goes on the journey with the jellyfish scene, the shark scene, what else did they do? When they go on the whale mount. It's also hysterical. Dory's hysterical in that movie. The Tank Gang, I love them all. I love Peach so much when she's like on the wall. It's like, can't hear you, Peach. I said we got a live one. I like it's. Love that movie. Finding Nemo is actually I think it's my mom's favorite. My mom loves Finding Nemo because she loves Dory and she loves Nemo and all that. But Finding Nemo, that's my number 3. That's another movie that makes me cry if it's the right kind of day. The scene where Dory says, "I don't want to forget," and then Marlin says, "Sorry, Dory, but I do." Like, yeah,
it gets me every time. I love Finding Nemo. It's a great story. The ending gets me every time. Also, you have he touched the butt. That scene. Like that's funny.
The kids explaining their allergies.
Yeah. So again, 5 Inside Out, 4 Toy Story 2, 3 Finding Nemo. Sean, you're 5 through 3.
I will just say though, my favorite lines from Finding Nemo are when the kids are just introducing themselves at the very beginning. It's like, I have a shorter tentacle. You can't tell though when I go like this. I'm H2O intolerant. I'm obnoxious. I'm sorry, but that seahorse is my favorite.
I also love the joke that Marlon keeps trying to say. There's this mollusk, and he walks up. He doesn't walk up. He swims up to the sea cucumber, and the sea cucumbers can't talk, but in this joke they talk. He's like the way he explains it.
It's such a, and I'm just glad he tells it right.
Also, the I am a nice shark. Fish are friends, not food. Like that whole oath that they say,
True.
Phenomenal.
But for mine, for my 5 through 3, I'll go a little quick. Because here's the thing. They all could be number one.
I know there are so many movies on this list that aren't.
It's literally a matter of like a 10 out of 10, a 9.9, a 9.8, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Like, I actually have been sitting here and I actually started swapping some of them around, but I think I've settled on what the real one is because they're all so fantastic. But I had to pick a 5 and so on and forth. But my 5th slot is Ratatouille.
Good pick.
I love it. It's just cute. It's a wonderful movie. One of the best, and hey, one of the best Disney scores out there. Oh
yes, film scores. Ratatouille, good.
Ratatouille's Le Fiston, the themes of Paris. Oh my god, it's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful message. Linguini's a great character. Yep. Remy, I like Patton Oswalt. So
no, yeah, that's another good.
Patton Oswalt was a good voice performance from Remy. But that whole movie's themes, the feelings you get, the fact that they stress, it's one of those movies that also stresses the creativity of the individual.
Anyone can cook.
Anyone can cook. And they melt Ego's heart, which also, one of my favorite references is like they call him the Grim Eater in the newspaper, and then you see his office from a sky view. It's shaped like a coffin. Yeah. Like that little really cool. Bit of really symbolism is so amazing to me. Ratatouille is number 5. And then the battle for 1 through 4 was such a tough one, and I hate. See,
now I knew my 1 through 4 easily. It was the 5th slot. I had so much trouble.
No, my 1 through 4 were a struggle. I knew what my 5th one was. Ratatouille is basically second place. Everything else is just a tie for first, but I had to quantify.
So what's 4 and 3?
4 is Coco.
Wow.
I know.
I thought that'd be your number 1.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Now I've had a long running number 1, and I've had a long running number 1. It was not Coco. No. It was not. Oh, wow. But you'll see what it is now. Okay. Here's the thing. Like I said, this was hard and it hurt me, but I will admit, I cry every time the Remember Me scene at the very end with his grandmother. Yeah. Every single time. Yep. I get choked up thinking about it. Like, it's just such a sweet movie. It's about remembering what's important, the aspects of family. The fact that Miguel and Hector don't even know their family until like the final acts of the movie makes it all the better. Mm-hmm. It shows that family can come from anywhere when you least expect it. Just as much as it is important to keep your real bloodline family close. Yeah. Anyone can be family when you choose to make them family. And it's just the music drive, Hector's themes, the feel of everything. I like the villain. I mean, he's not exactly evil.
Oh, Ernesto?
Ernesto's selfish and kind of a sleaze, but I think that twist, he works.
Though. I like that twist.
The twist of him murdering Hector was good.
Yeah. It felt organic. It felt earned. I've only seen the movie once. I'm sure it gets better with rewatch. I have very personal. I won't get into it because this is not a personal podcast. We're talking about deepest, darkest feelings, but I have very strong personal connections to that movie with the whole memory loss thing. Yes. And I watched it once, absolutely was shattered by it in terms of just my emotions, and haven't watched it since because I know if I watch it again, it's just going to also be terrible.
I fell in love with that movie, and it should be higher, but like I said, pretty much at this point, everything's just tied for first, and it hurts me to quantify them.
So then
it's like picking your favorite kid.
I really thought Coco being number 1. So what's 3?
3 is Soul.
It made it.
It made it. So here's the thing. Coco, for the longest time, was a contender for number 1 for me. And the difference between Coco and Soul is Coco made me want to cry and hug someone, whereas Soul made me want to look in the mirror and smile. Like, Soul made me think, like, especially since I'm a musician. And the classroom scene in the very beginning, not the hallway bit, but like...
the classroom scene.
The classroom scene of just like, the band is struggling. But the one trombone player just stands up and feels it. And then everyone gives the look to her like, what are you doing? And then she gets embarrassed about it. And Joe's just like, no. First off, let me tell you where I come from. My dad was a jazz pianist. We're like, this is how chords work. This, like, that feeling of being in the club that night. And he gets into the zone without even realizing it. And that for opening scene, that's what it feels like as a musician. That movie, in that scene with the little girl and Joe and the classroom of kids that should not have taken that elective course. That is what it feels like to be a musician.
Even more so, I like the scene where the girl comes to his apartment, and when 22 is Joe, and she comes to, she wants to quit, and then she realizes that, like, and she just plays the trombone, and, like, it's just so...
Oh my... And it's so organic and good.
Yeah.
That is what... like
those two scenes hit me the most.
Those scenes are what made this... what made it be Coco.
The trombonist is the best character confirmed.
I watch Coco... I watch Coco to, like, remind me of, like, who I have made my family, but I watch Soul to remind myself of what I'm doing with my life. And those two movies walk hand in hand for me, but I had to put one above the other, and I put Soul above it.
Okay. So, Ratatouille, Coco, and Soul.
Ratatouille, Coco, and Soul. Matt, what's your number 2?
I'm not going to waste any time because we're already getting really, really into runtime. Number 2 is The Incredibles, the first one.
Very good choice.
That
score, man!
It's the best Fantastic Four movie. It's one of the best superhero movies ever made. It's not really... It's a movie about family. It's a movie about sacrifice. Yes. It's a movie about wanting to be something more than what you currently are, because they're all superheroes, but they're all in hiding. Syndrome is the best Pixar villain, hands down. One of the best twist villains that Pixar or Disney has ever made, just because it's really not a twist villain. It feels so real.
It feels organic.
And when it happens,
it's a natural twist.
You're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. This guy that Mr. Incredible pretty much shunned and said, like, fly home, buddy. I work alone. And
he's the personification of don't meet your heroes.
Exactly. And The Incredible, it's funny. The action's great. I just love it. It is probably the Pixar movie that just is so much fun, and it also makes you think, because there's really great action sequences, but there's also really great, like, family sequences, and the whole part with also Edna Mode. Like, come on, Edna Mode is probably the best supporting character that Pixar has ever made in terms of, like, not having a lot of screen time and making a huge impact on the movie. Her scene with the no capes, that whole scene, it makes me laugh every single time.
I strive to have Edna Mode's confidence. I want to be that confident.
Do you know where he is? Do you know where he is?
Yep.
Okay, Incredibles is number 2. I'm not going to waste any more. We're already running over time right now, but Incredibles is number 2 because it is. I love superhero movies, and Pixar made probably one of the best of all time, and it's an animated movie about family, about meeting your heroes like Syndrome and that whole villain arc and how dangerous that could be. It's a movie about sacrifice. It's a movie about it's hysterical. It's just great. I could absolutely just praise that movie forever, but to save time, I won't. So your number 2. I'm really interested to hear this. If this movie is not a certain movie, though, then I know exactly what your number 1 is. But it depends on what number 2 is.
And I feel like I'm betraying an old friend by saying this.
I swear if you say this movie, because it's going to really floor me.
Number 2 is WALL-E.
Damn it! I thought that was your number 1!
That's the thing.
Oh, no!
WALL-E.
What the hell?
It's not like WALL-E moved down the peg. It's something just shot past it and I didn't see it coming. Look,
oh my God, are you actually
I'll say
doing
that. I'll say this. WALL-E has been my favorite Pixar movie for probably the better part of a decade. And it's 2 robots that fall in love. What more do you want? If you don't like WALL-E, there's a bit of a heartlessness to you, and I will not apologize for that statement.
I would like to apologize to my dad, because I know my dad does not like WALL-E.
I'm sorry. There's just something, like, it's 2 robots that fall in love, and I'm gonna say it, one of my favorite scenes of that entire movie is Define dancing.
Yep.
There is no words spoken except for the dictionary definition of what dancing is and a few shots of what life is like, overplaying with this glorious choreographed movement of pure passion in space by 2 robots. And it's so just good. You feel every single movement. You feel every note of the score. It is a beautifully
another Thomas
animated
Newman
scene.
score.
It's another Thomas Newman score. That man is a genius. But, like, that scene alone gets me for Wall-E. The love story between Wall-E and Eve, the triumphant return of the Axiom, the fact that the captain like throws himself out of his chair at the end and takes on Otto. Like the surge of remembering who you were in that movie is so fantastic. And Wall-E's my favorite Pixar character, but like I had to put it at number 2 because something came out of nowhere and didn't take Wall-E down, but it walked into the ring with Wall-E.
I know what your number 1 is now.
I know, and I can't believe I'm saying it.
Do you want to say it now?
You want me to?
You can if you want.
Number 1 is Onward.
Oh my god! I cannot believe that's already number 1.
Look, I may have just watched it recently, but like, I'm sorry.
You are a D&D nerd, so that is literally right up your alley.
D&D is a huge part of who I am, how I view things.
I have had
look. I feel like I just stabbed Wall-E in the back. All right, let me mourn. But I love Wall-E to death. But Onward to me, just seeing. Yes, I saw it recently. Yes, I have recent viewer bias, but I really think that what I say is the truth. I realized watching Onward fresh that it is one of the times that Pixar, like every Pixar movie, has caused a lump in my throat except for like a few. We'll get to that in a second. But I had the most lumps in my throat throughout that movie. It was real. And there was a line in that movie that really struck home with me, and it took a lot of effort to not actually tear up. And it took me by surprise. And yes, I love the aesthetic. I love D&D. I've had the fortune of having this wonderful community to play with for several years now. I've written a few campaigns. I've hosted many singular games. I've brought so many people into it. And the aesthetic is me. And I am Barley. I could be Barley's twin brother. But there was one line in that movie that threw it over the edge for me, and it was when Barley talked about why he was not afraid of anything. So there was that is just kind of something that stuck with me, and I don't know. I'm giving it to Onward. So Matt, give me your number 1. You look like you're betrayed that it's no longer Wall-E.
You already made it. I mean, Wall-E's not my number 1.
Well, yeah, I know it's not for you. You're not partial to Wall-E.
If you know me outside of this podcast, if you're friends with me and you've known me for a pretty long time, you already knew what number 1 was. Because unlike you, who as soon as you watch a movie, you're like, it's my new favorite.
No, that's not true. I legitimately mean it. There was a
I believe you. It's just I can't believe you. I know that you love Wall-E and you love Coco, and I'm shocked that Onward is already above those for you.
It's just
okay. Well,
it was a sniper shot that was so well placed.
I'm just kind of surprised. But if you know me, you already knew what number 1 was. If I were to pick one singular movie as my movie, a movie that just is my movie, the one that I associate with the most, the one that I quote the most, the one that I just absolutely love with in every single way. And I understand maybe Incredibles or Wall-E might be objectively Pixar's best film, but this is our top 5 favorites. And that's why number 1 is Monsters, Inc. And everybody should have seen this coming, because Monsters, Inc. is a perfect film. It is absolutely fantastic in every single way. I don't even feel like I need to. I watched this movie as a kid, and I've literally probably watched this movie more than any movie in my entire life. I quote it on a day-to-day basis. Sean has watched this movie with me, and literally as it's playing, I'm reciting it as it happens. Mike Wazowski.
Flawlessly, might I add.
Mike Wazowski is my favorite movie character of all time. And it's not just because he's a funny character. It's not just because he's comic relief. He really is the cynic that turns into the hopeful by the end of the movie. Because he's the one at the beginning that doesn't want Boo there. And then by the end of the movie, he's the one that helps out Sully and bringing Boo back. He really does have an amazing arc. And I love Mike and Sully is the best Pixar tandem they've ever had. Better than Buzz and Woody.
Yeah.
Because Buzz and Woody are only really together for the first movie.
And then they're never
2,
together.
They're separated. In 3, Buzz talks in Spanish. And in 4, it's mostly Woody and Bo Peep. Mike and Sully in the first Monsters, Inc. are the perfect buddy cop sort of dynamic. Yeah. And Boo is amazing. Randall's an amazing villain. That movie's hysterical. I just love it. I really can't list that many reasons because I'm just going to keep rambling. But Monsters, Inc. is that one movie as a kid that you watch all the time and you just fall in love with and you can't stop falling in love with. It is going to take a very, very special movie by Pixar to literally ever top Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
And that's why it's my number one. But you're not here to hear our top 5. You're not here to hear us
Even
praise.
though we just talked way too long about them.
You're here to hear our top 3 worst. Our bottom 3 worst.
And we'll keep this a little short because we are approaching the end of our time.
So,
but
I'll just. Do you want me to list just my bottom 3?
Give your 2. I'll give my 2. We'll say 1, and then we'll close it with our favorite short.
Okay. So number 3. Sorry, Kyle, my brother. Number 3 is A Bug's Life. Because that movie just does nothing for me.
Even after you learned about the Pixar Theory?
Also, first of all, it's Pixar's ugliest looking movie. It is animated horrendously. The ants are like gray. It's really, really disgusting to look at, and it really just has nothing for me to latch on. I've never enjoyed watching it. It's just kind of always like one of the movies I'm like, okay. It doesn't feel like a Pixar movie. And it was when they were still getting their footing, and it's so weird that this movie was in between Toy Story and Toy Story 2. It's like Toy Story was phenomenal, broke grounds. Then they made A Bug's Life. It's like, what the hell is that?
It was the break.
And then they made Toy Story 2, which is great. Bug's Life, never been a fan. 2, my second least favorite Pixar movie is Brave. The worst protagonist in Pixar's history.
She creates every problem.
And I'm not saying that, like, I don't want that to sound, like, rude or anything, but, like, she literally causes every single problem and then whines and complains about her current situation. It's like, this is literally all your fault.
You did this to yourself.
You literally did this all to yourself.
I like her as a character, but like if you look at what she actually did and how little she really grew.
Brave's not a good movie. It's just not good.
The humor's not that great.
All right, your turn.
Well, it's kind of fitting because Brave is my 3rd.
Yeah.
So like I'm gonna continue.
Finally, we've overlapped. We didn't have any overlap in our top 5
never
again.
did.
What the hell?
I'm gonna continue to pick on Brave. Just the humor was not that great.
No.
Meredith does create every single problem.
Merida.
Whatever. That's how little I cared about this movie. I watched it like twice and I don't even remember her name. Merida. Oh, jeez.
Not a fan.
Not a fan of her. I'm not a fan of this movie. The humor is played kind of down. They had potential. They had steam, but then just nothing. Mm-hmm. Nothing happened. But anyways, number 2 is Finding Money.
Finding Money.
For reasons we've already talked about. I hate every second of that movie. I hate those accursed seals.
I don't hate it.
I hate the seals.
Okay.
I hate this movie. But there's one movie that tops it.
All right, let's just say it on 3 because
I think it's the same.
1, 2, 3.
Cars 2.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, so here's the problem with Cars 2, right? There's a difference between, I'm just going to use my amount of 2. I hate Finding Money because it was needless and it just didn't execute anything well. It didn't add anything, and I hate it for personal reasons. But Cars 2 is so fundamentally broken as a film. I love James Bond. Cars 1 was okay-ish.
Yeah.
I did not need to see Larry the Cable Guy pretend to be
that's
international super spy.
The worst part of the movie is that they made Mater the main
character.
character.
Mater's not a main character. Mater's comic relief. And every 10 seconds, there's something wrong with something on the screen or dialogue or plot.
Also, going back to scores.
The twist is bad.
The score, it literally is just the same. It's that one thing.
It's just that over and over and over and over and over again. It's so bad. There's no good act. You can't make Cars
bad.
You can't make Cars have a fist fight.
We watched this movie in our room and we literally spent the entire time just shitting on this movie.
I don't think we shut up once the entire movie because every second you can find something wrong with it. I admire when someone tries to undertake a project, whether it be film, music, anything, and they try something new and ambitious. But there's
they definitely tried something.
There's something new and ambitious. But like there's a difference between something new and ambitions that you can like actually see the groundwork and theory behind it, and then there's Cars, and then there's Cars 2 on top of it. Like
Cars 2 is a cinematic
it's so
disaster.
Broken. It's not even a disaster. It's broken. It's an unusable thing. Why are they cars? Like
it's just bad. Cars 2 is the worst movie that Pixar's ever made. It's the worst movie Pixar ever made,
and it makes me violently angry about it.
Yep, it's bad. It's really, really terrible.
It's like when someone purposely moves the stickers around on a Rubik's Cube but doesn't do it entirely, so there's no way to solve it.
If I have to torture somebody by making them watch a movie, I'm going to make them. I'm going to
waterboard them with Cars 2.
Cars 2. It is a horrendous movie that is just one big pile of shit. It's just terrible. Pardon my French. It's just terrible.
But I'll say one last thing on the count of 3, 2, 1. I want us both to say our favorite Pixar short, and then we'll close
the same
it.
one. So why don't you just say yours right now?
I feel like we have different ones.
Well, yeah, but if we say them at the same time, it's
fair enough.
Weird to like. So
well, you want to go? You want to go first? I'm kind of hog.
My favorite is Day and Night. The one with
very good.
The one with the clouds and they like explore each other's like the day and night and stuff, and like they come to accept each other, that like, you know, the yin and the yang, they kind of need to work together. I've always enjoyed that one. It's very, very wholesome. An honorable mention to Jerry's Game.
Yeah, also a very good one. Mine's Presto. It's not the best pick, but I love me some Bugs Bunny action. Yeah. I'm sorry, not a single word is said, and the comedy is wonderful. I love the bunny. I love the music. I just love every second of it. It's cute. It's wholesome. It came out with Wall-E, I believe. So.
1 second.
I want to say it was Wall-E because I vaguely remember the two of them being.
Yes,
named.
it was Wall-E.
So yeah,
and Day and Night was with Toy Story 3.
Yes,
I think
I do remember that. But like, I just have to say, I love Presto. I love me some Bugs Bunny action, and Presto gave me that. So yeah, but that's our little dissection of Pixar.
We apologize for the length again. We really think that the episode's gonna be short, and then we just keep talking.
We promise you, we'll have a brevity to our future shows.
To quickly recap our bottom 3, mine is, what was my third? Oh, Bug's Life, Brave, Cars 2, and yours was?
Mine was Brave, Finding Money, and Cars 2.
So yeah, the bottom 3,
really
a lot of overlap. It's just the top 5 again. No overlap. I cannot believe you put Onward at number 1.
It was a sniper shot that I didn't see coming, and I don't know. I won't defend any further than that.
And this is probably the most obvious number 1, and probably that would hit our show's history. That's going to happen is me number 1 being Monsters Inc. If you didn't know that going in, now you do. Yeah. And you're never going to hear the end of it.
Basically, those of you who've never met Matt before, now you know.
Yeah, Monsters Inc. number 1. Nothing's ever going to beat it unless Pixar literally makes the greatest film of all time.
Monsters Inc. 2.
Well, they made that, and it was bad. But that's beside the point.
That is all we have for you guys this week. Thank you once again for listening in. If you are, we look forward to next week's show. We're actually going to have our first guest.
Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to have our first ever segment of that bloodbath thing that Sean and I were talking
about.
The
we're not
best of 7 speed debate.
Yeah, we're not going to be cooperating next week whatsoever.
No, not even remotely.
In fact, one of us may die.
One of us may die, and expect maybe... Well, Connor, Sean's roommate's coming on, and we stuck to it. Next week, we are starting our overarching Star Wars series.
Every couple episodes, we're going to dissect the 3 trilogies of main Star Wars films with a little bit of mention of Solo and Rogue One in there.
Yes.
And we're
starting with the prequels.
We're starting with the prequels, and then we'll take a break, and then maybe we'll do the main one, and so on and so forth. But next week, expect Connor, our dear friend, my current roommate, to be on next week to add to our conversation and to essentially turn us on each other during our bloodbath segment.
Yeah, and also expect of the 3 of us, there will be because usually this Pixar episode you could see we like the same films, we hate the same films. The prequels with me, Sean, and Connor.
One of us will die.
People, we disagree.
We disagree.
So this will be so it's gonna be very interesting. And also be on the lookout for Bloodbath. That is also coming your way. And also Connor will be on with us the entire episode. He'll be doing his top 10 list with us. We won't say what it is. We'll want to surprise you. But yes, thank you once again for tuning in. This episode is already running very long, so we'll end it right here. Thank you again for listening. We hope you enjoyed our discussion about Pixar. Tune in next week for the prequel episode.
Yeah. And just remember, no matter how crazy life gets, everything is fine.